The Heisenberg uncertainty principle has huge implications for our study of nature because it actually means that there are limits on what we can know. That, for example, as we're going down onto smaller and smaller scales in the quantum world, there's actually a minimum size we'll get to beyond which the properties of matter blur out to such an extent that we cannot, at least with our current understanding of the universe, actually know anything about nature. That minimum size is called the Planck length, and it's equivalent to this. That's 10 to the minus 35 meters. That's the Planck scale, way below the size of a cell, way below the size of an atom, beyond the size of a nucleus, even down below the size of the smallest particles we know of. It's actually 100 million billion times smaller than you are. Now that's a very, 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 very small scale, but it does mean that at the Planck length, reality itself is sort of this blurred out mush that we've called the quantum foam. And nothing can be observed empirically, nothing can be described scientifically. We reach the limits of at least our current scientific knowledge of the universe. Now, of course, remember that space and time are linked, so if there's a minimum time or minimum length beyond which we cannot know anything, there's also a minimum time. And we call that the Planck time. The Planck time is defined as the time it takes a photon to travel the Planck length. It's about 10 to the minus 43 seconds. We'll come back to this number at the end of the course. But that's the Planck length and the Planck time. There's also a minimum mass, minimum charge, and so on. All of this comes out of the idea that the universe, matter, energy, even space and time are quantized. But how are we to make sense of all this? How are we to make sense of a universe where wave-particle duality is real, something that at the very heart of nature seems to completely contradict everything our senses tell us? How do we make sense of a quantum world in which these things that are waves and particles translate into our observable universe of separate waves and separate particles? What does all this mean for reality? Well, this is something that goes into metaphysics. Remember, metaphysics is what goes beyond our understanding of nature. And philosophers and mostly scientists have tried to come up with an understanding of what this means for the nature of reality. They've come up with at least two major interpretations, and we'll take a look at that starting in the next video.